Okay, we're gonna start. We're gonna start today. Shalach le Rab Abba Rab Yosef Bar Chama. Halfway down the page. There's a few of these on the page. So, is it the fourth one? Let me see. 1, 2. It's the third one. I think it's the third one. No, no, we did that already.
That one's the third.
1 second. The first one was, you stole my slave. And he said, if you want, you can swear. The second one was, you can collect from slaves, even from orphans. And the third one was the testimony of witnesses who's kosher. That's the third one. The fourth one is it's the blind. That's what we're holding. We're holding by the blind. Okay, we thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. This chus of learning, we should have the base of Migdash immediately. And we're learning Lili Nishmas, Avigol the Basra Binyamin, son of Zev ben Zion, and also for Shleima, Rav and David ben Sarah. Gedaliah gets Elias. Okay, goes like this. Shalach le Rab Abba le Rab Yosef Bar Chama. Rab Abba sends to Rab Yosef Bar Chama. We said Rab Yosef Bar Chama is the father of Rava. Let's say there was a piece of land that was bordering someone else's land. There was a person that knew where the border was, where the line was. Said his property went until this tree and this rock, and the other person's property starts from that one. And what happened was, Vinistima, then he went blind. And now he wants to testify about something that he had seen before he was blind. So Rab Abba sends to Rab Yosef Bar Chama, he tells him that it's puzzle. That's not acceptable. Shmuel Amar Kasher. Shmuel says that it is kosher. Efsher de mechaven mitzrana, because it's possible that even though he can't see it, but he's able to use markers, signs that tell me where it is. He says this rock, that rock. He doesn't have to be able to see it. Doesn't have to point to it and say it's until here. It says it went until the fence, whatever it is. But if you would have to testify whose garment it is, not how long the cloth is, but that's by the property is how long it is, where's the parameter. But if it's a garment, he says it's his garment or his garment, that he won't be able to testify because it's possible that the people have the same garment. And if you can't see it, you can't testify about it. Rav Sheshes says that now that he's blind, he's still, even though now he's blind, he can still testify about a garment. Why? He can still say, when I saw it, I remember it was as long as an amma this way and an amma that way. And he could give the measurements of it accurately. That would be a sign that would be, even though people have the same garments, but the same sizes, they're not necessarily, right? They have the same color, but exactly the way it was made, everything was custom made back then, right? They didn't have the factory made. I'm not sure. Anyone remember? Hill is asking where we had this Gemara before about someone that's becoming blind. He knew something before he was blind. I'm not sure. I don't remember. Well, it sounds like a Sanhedrin type of sugya. It talks about Adis and stuff, but we didn't do Sanhedrin yet. So maybe the Malach forgot to hit you. So Rav Shesha said, okay. Aval naschalai, but if it would come to a bar of silver, right? Nascha is like a bar of precious metal, silver usually. Then that he can't testify about how which one is his or something, because they're the same size. We'd have to be able to recognize it and all of that. Rav Papa mafil nascha, even a nascha, even a bar of silver, he can also testify about because he saw it before when he was able to see. What do you call someone that's not blind? Just like regular, but is there a word for it? Sighted? Okay. What is it? Insightful. That's right. So after the Mechavan Midas Mishkalaisim, maybe you can say it's weight. Maybe you'll be able to say it's weight. Okay, so we have over here a few opinions, but all of them agree. Shmuel agrees. Shmuel, Rav Sheshes, and Rav Papa, they all agree that you can testify about property, even though he went blind. Question is, does that also include a garment? Does it also include a bar of silver? But there's some testimony he can say even after he goes blind. Well, Meisvei, the Gemara is a question. The question is going to go on everyone. Except for Rababa, who started this. He says that it's possible. It says, Meisvei, Hayedelai. Interesting. Okay. Now we're talking about how a person becomes puzzled, becomes invalid for testimony, because he became a relative. And he became a relative, well, he married the person's daughter. Now he's a son-in-law. So he had a testimony beforehand, something that he could testify about, and then he became related. Or pikeach v'nescharish. Let's say he became deaf. He was kosher before, and he knew the testimony, and now he became deaf. Pitach v'nistama. His eyes were open. That means he had sight, and he became blind. Shafoi v'nishtata. He was sane, and he became insane. Well, puzzle. He's puzzle. Doesn't tell me that he can testify because of land. Yeah, he can testify about property, which all of them said yes.
This may be true of like dementia. That's like the
Could be, right. Aval what happens like this? What happens if he knew the testimony before he was related? He became related, he married the daughter, but then the daughter died. Now he's not related anymore. So can he testify now? Or let's say he could hear, he became deaf, and now he came back to hearing. They got a hearing thing, right? I assume that helps. He had sight, he lost his sight, and now he got it back. So at the beginning and the end, it's good. He was sane, he became insane, and he came back sane. So kosher, that's going to be valid. This is the rule. Anything that has one end, either the beginning or the end, is pasul, then the testimony is pasul. But if the beginning and the end, both the beginning and the end, it doesn't matter what happened in the middle, it's kosher. The beginning and end is kosher, then it's going to be kosher. Now we see from this zehaklal that if one side is puzzle, it's puzzle for everything, even if it would be property. Otherwise, like, why are we adding in zehaklal? The zehaklal is coming to tell me that even if it's if for every case, here's the general rule. If you're adding in the general rule, you come to inclusive, and this would mean, yeah, I'm sorry.
I was just thinking, this leads to a kind of a weird situation. Someone is a witness and then marries the man's daughter. Now he's puzzle. And they get divorced, okay, now he's okay. But they had a child in the middle. Now he's possible, but the man's grandson, no, he could testify, but the man's grandson can't.
Yeah, so 1 second. I have to show you the Rashbam. You were mechaven to what the Rashbam says. The Rashbam says, the Umeisa Bita, you have to go 4 lines from the bottom. The Hainu Karav Nisrachik. That means he was a relative, but now he became distant. And we're talking about a case where he doesn't have children. Apparently, if he would have children, that would keep him attached and would keep him puzzled.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I read that earlier, but I forgot that point. That's an important point. Okay.
That's on the bottom of side bays?
No, Kuf Chaf Ches Amud Aleph, and it's 3-4 lines up from the in the Rashbam.
Okay, thank you.
So we have now a question on Shmuel, and we have a question on Rav Sheshes. We have a question on Rav Papa. All of them said that there was potential, there was possibility where the testimony should be good. It was either about land, it was about garments, depending according to which opinion. Gemara says to Yufta the Kulu to Yufta. You're supposed to read it. Tiyufta the Kulu. This is a question on everyone. Tiyufta, yes, it is. That's what you're supposed to read. The question on all of them. Okay. Shalach Rab Abba Rab Yosef Bar Chama. Aimer Rab Abba sends to Rab Yosef Bar Chama another one. What is this? Where are we holding number 6? Number 5? Number 5. Aimer Al Tinak. Numbers in. Back of this. The one we give was number 4. And that was 3. The 2 and 3 are very close together. That's the problem. Okay. He sends him a question. If someone says one of his children is whatever, he's trusted. He doesn't say yet what. Rabbi Yechon says he's not trusted. My comment, what is he saying over here? Like, I didn't explain what we have. Just the rule, but we don't have a scenario. We don't have a case. Amar Abaya says, let's go. I'll tell you what the case is. We had an opinion of Rabbi Yechon ben Breika that a person was allowed to give all his inheritance to one of his inheritors. As long as that one person was kosher to inherit, he's allowed to funnel all of his things into that one channel of inheritance, just to that one son. And so the first opinion is that he's Naaman. Comes along Rabbi Yochanan and he says, Eine Naaman Kirabanan. The Rabbanan didn't allow this, and Rabbi Yochanan would go like the Rabbanan. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika and Rabbi Yochanan, that shouldn't confuse you. Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika and the Rabbanan are Tanoim. And here it's Rab Abba sending to Rabbi Yosef Bar Chama, who's and giving him the other opinion of Rabbi Yochanan as well, who says Eine Naaman. So Rabbi Yochanan says, he says that you can't funnel all the inheritance into one channel. You have to allow the way it's prescribed by the Torah. Maskef l'Rava, yeah.
It has to begin at a kosher with witness, then could become the unkosher, then become kosher again.
Yeah.
But in the example that it's not, for example, a kid, like it's not aged, instead of testifying that he becomes older, that wouldn't count.
But he didn't start. He didn't start as kosher. Yeah. There were certain cases where Hillel is bringing up a good point. There are certain cases where a child was allowed to testify later on when he became an adult what he saw when he was younger. Remember, remember, it's like unique cases where that was acceptable. But in a typical monetary case, that wouldn't be acceptable, right? So, Maskif la Rava has a question to Abaya. You just explained what Rabbi Abba said to your father, Rabbi Yosef Bar Chama. He says it doesn't fit with the wording because Hay Neman ve'ine Neman Yirash v'la Yirash mi ba'ilay. You said he's trusted. The ruling was he's trusted. It shouldn't say he's trusted. Trusted has to do with a matter of trust. Here it has to do with a matter of psak halacha. Does he inherit it? Does he not inherit? The word trusted is the wrong term. That if someone says that one son amongst the sons should whatever, he's trusted. Trusted isn't the correct word. It's to say that son inherits is the correct word. Ah, the Hill is saying that he's trusted. He means because of amigo. That if he wanted, he could have given it to him. No, I don't think Rabbi Yechon was Rabbi Yechon remembered because of amigo. That was something else, wasn't it? That was if he wanted him. Going back to part, amigo was. We had the story with him. We had that with amigo. If someone wanted to said that his son is a bachar, wanted to give him the double portion, could have given it to him anyway, right? So that's why he was trusted. That's why we didn't need the pasuk according to the Rabbanan. Where was that? It was right a page before, right? We said that was the pasuk was necessary. Where Rabbi Yechon Mebreka didn't. It wasn't because of amigo. He was talking about inheritance, right? Yeah. Okay. Ella Amar Rav. Rather, Rav has to come in with his own shot. Hachikamer. This is what Rabbi Abba was sending to Rabbi Yosef Bar Chama. If he testifies that one of his children is a bachar, and we also had a chazaka that he wasn't a bachar, that the other one was a bachar, so then Ne'aman, he's trusted to Rabbi Yehuda that says that the father is trusted against the chazaka. He uses the pasuk of Yakir that we learned yesterday or 2 days ago, that Yakir can tell me that we believe the father even against the chazaka, even against an assumed status. Rabbi Yechon says we don't trust the father like the Rabbanan's opinion that the father is only trusted when there is no chazaka. But here we're talking about a case where there was a chazaka, so he won't be trusted according to Rabbi Yechon. Okay. Number 6, right? Shalach le Rab Abba or Rabbi Yosef Bar Chama. Rabbi Abba sends a halacha. Rabbi Yosef Bar Chama. Someone says, I want my wife to inherit just like one of my sons. So he has a few sons, 3 sons or something. He says, my wife should get another portion. So we're going to divide it into 4. If there's no firstborn here. Well, the rule is, he gets to take. She takes like one of the sons. We're talking about where he's not doing this as a. It's a gift. He's doing it as a gift, not as an inheritance. Well, there's some slight complications that could arise because of this, and Amar Rava says, The chasam shalachshav means when he gave this gift, he's only giving a portion, the way it would be divided from his possessions right now at the time when he made that statement. Now, either he's a shchiv mirah, either he's on his deathbed, and so therefore doesn't require a kinyan, or it's talking about that they made a kinyan, and it's avoiding also that there's a ksuba here, or he's saying that this is part of her ksuba and she's accepting this to be the ksuba or whatever it is. She's accepting this as the ksuba, or it's besides for the ksuba. There's a lot of vagueness in this. What's happening in this case, but what Rav is coming in to tell us is that if he gets property later, he acquires property later, even if he's on his deathbed, but somehow he just managed to acquire some more property. That's not going into the division of the wife's portion, because when it's a gift, he's only giving what he has now. That's what he's giving. However, at the time of death, let's say there's another son that's born. So now, do you divide it into 4 or 5? Or let's say one son was passed away. There's no inheritors over there. Divide it into 3, and she gets extra, or maybe she gets less. So when it comes to the property, I look at it at the time of the statement. When it comes to the division, I look at it at the time of death. And what's the rule with the child that's born later? It's part of the inheritance, right? Yeah, well, they would have to wait. Well, how does inheritance work if the woman is pregnant? If it's a boy, then he gets part of the inheritance. If it's a girl, she doesn't. Right? They have to wait to divide it. Right? It's going to change the whole thing. Okay. Where are we now? 7. Shalach le Rabbi Rabbi Yosef bar Chama. Abba sent to Rabbi Yosef bar Chama. Hamaitzi shtarchev al chaverei. If someone produces a document, takes out a document on his friend, a promissory note, and it says like this: Malva Imer leinefrati klum. The lender, the creditor says, you didn't pay me back at all. The borrower says, what do you mean? I paid you back half. So I wasn't expecting that. The witnesses come in. This is not what you would expect in a regular case. Witnesses come in and said that he paid everything, and he just admitted that he still owes half. So the Gemara talks about cases like this. The Gemara talks about this. The Gemara calls this a Meshiv Aveda. He's like returning a lost object. The person really has no claim at all. It's his document versus witnesses, and he comes in. It's like the guy lost his mind, and he says, "Oh, by the way, I found your wallet." So on one hand, we can say he's a Maida b'miktas. He admitted he's a partial, and he has to take an oath. On the other hand, we say he's a Meshiv Aveda. He's returning a lost object. And we have this Good Samaritan law. We're not supposed to call it that, but if someone does something like that, so then, right? So then we say that he should not have to swear. We're going to make every person that does a good deed, we're going to make him take an oath. How much was in the wallet? No one's going to want to do return objects if they're going to have to take oaths. You're getting yourself into like a liability. So 1 second. So the rule is, but the only thing is here, the witnesses showed up later. Before the witnesses showed up, he gave his claim that I paid half. So he was a Maida b'miktas. The person takes an oath. Takes an oath that I paid half. And in the second half, the creditor comes to collect. Now, he had a field that he had sold. So when that person bought the field, he did a title search, and he saw that there were no loans. That's why he bought it. And he has witnesses that there are no loans. So the guy comes and says, yeah, but he admitted to me that there is a loan. So the purchaser says, that's your own story. You may be making this up between yourselves. You may be trying to, like, this is foul play. You're doing something to get me to lose it. I'm trusting the witnesses. So which means that the creditor can come and collect only from the borrower, but not from property. Not from property that he's claiming has a lien on it.
These witnesses are helping
the purchaser.
Testimony of
The purchaser. So because they can say whoever purchased property, we're relying on the witnesses. What you guys are doing, that's your own conspiracy. Okay. Now Rabbi Akiva, there was machlekes in the beginning of Bab Metzia regarding a case similar to this, where a person, what happened over there? It says two people are holding a document. The document over there in that Gemara was, the document said he borrowed slime, which is like saying dollars. And the creditor says it was $5. The borrower says it was only $3. Now he didn't have to say 3. He could have said 2, because the document would have supported 2. The fact that he added 1 in, Rabbi Akiva says you're just a Meshav Aveda, you're just a good Samaritan, you're just doing something nice. We can't impose an oath on you when you're doing something nice.
We trust the document.
Well, the document is vague, but if he would have said 2, the document would have supported that as well. He didn't have to say 3. So now he's Meshav Aveda. That's the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says that no, he's not a Meshav Aveda. He's a Maida b'miktas, and he has to take an oath. Okay. Now that was a case without witnesses showing up. So the Gemara now says that over here he can collect. He's considered he has to take an oath. What would Rabbi Akiva say about this? Akiva said in that case he doesn't have to take. So Rabbi Akiva, even according to Rabbi Akiva over there, that says that he doesn't have to take an oath because he's just doing something good. We don't want to impose an oath on someone that's doing something kind. That's only when there were no witnesses. To see your test. He heard that there's witnesses coming. He doesn't know what they're going to say.
Right.
So
how is he claiming something that he's doing something kind? I mean, I guess there's like a migu right there because he's saying he's paying half. What if he pays the whole thing?
If he pays the whole thing, then he doesn't have to swear. Then he doesn't have to swear. Here we're talking about the guy's claiming he owe me $5. He says I only owe you 2.5 or something. And
I thought usually we trust him. They just say I don't know.
That's what the Gemara says. That really we should trust him because he could have denied everything, but a person doesn't have the guts to deny everything in front of the creditor. So therefore, he's just trying to delay payment. We don't want him to do this. We want him to be honest. Therefore, we impose on him an oath that he should admit that he owes everything. That's the Gemara in Bab Metzia. That's the logic behind the Maida b'miktas. That he has to swear. So, but here we're saying that that even according to Rabbi Akiva, that says that he doesn't have to swear because he's a Meshav Aveda. But over here, we're not going to consider him a Meshav Aveda because he's afraid of. He heard that witnesses are coming. He's afraid. He's not a Meshav Aveda. He's not just a good guy. He wants to clear himself up. So he said that he owes. He doesn't know what the witnesses are going to say. So he's not considered a Meshav Aved. Maskif Lamar Baravashi. Mar Baravashi says, Adarabba. He says, I would have said this exactly the opposite. I would have said, I feel Reb Shimon ben Elazar I would say exactly the opposite. Even Reb Shimon ben Elazar that says that he should swear by the 5 and 3 case, right? Over there, that's because he didn't have witnesses that were supporting him. For sure, he's a Meshav Aveda. On the contrary, over here, he's even more of a of a good Samaritan than he was over there. Because over there, he didn't have witnesses that were supporting him. Here, he has witnesses that are saying that he doesn't know anything. And he's saying, yes, I do owe.
I don't know. I think I agree with the Akiva's opinion.
That he's a Meshav. Oh, he's saying the first opinion. It's actually what the Gemara is going to do. You're correct.
How does it happen that the witnesses say Peter and he really didn't? He's saying that, oh no, I paid 3.
He probably paid in installments, and he doesn't remember. Yeah, I had a guy, someone that was helping me once, and I had to pay him every month something. Anyway, usually I paid him by check. One time I paid him by cash, and I left the money in his mailbox. And he didn't trust me. It was like a few months later. He said, "I only have in my records this, you know." So I left in your mailbox. He said, "Oh, how much was that?" it was very uncomfortable. But I remember running over to his house Erev Shabbos, putting it in. Yeah, so these things happen where it could be I forgot, he forgot. It didn't have to be exactly that way. It happened to be that I only had one person to pay. He had like a bunch of people paying. But, okay. Yeah, that's right. You got to do it. Keep track of these things.
Like, tell something in person, you might feel like closer, but you won't have a paper trail.
Right.
Just
Right. Right.
It's like I did it in my
You see, you in Eretz Yisrael? No, that's a picture. That's a wannabe.
Always in Eretz
Yisrael. Okay. There's a picture with my father. Okay. So actually, Yonatan mentioned, he says, I would think that we would follow the first opinion here, not the Mar Bar Ravashi. And the Gemara is actually going to do that in a moment. The Gemara, even though Mar Bar Ravashi had an interesting question, the Gemara is going to reject the Mar Bar Ravashi's question. And it's going to reject it in a way that it's just going to ignore it. It's going to say there's a simple answer to that. He came before the witnesses. So he can't claim that the witnesses are supporting him and he's a Meshav Aveda. If the witnesses came first, that would be a different story. But you came first, so you didn't really know what the witnesses are going to say. Even if they said something, but you don't know what's going to happen when they get to court.
So in this case, he paid him the 5, he forgot about 2, so now he's gonna have to repay him 2 again.
Yeah. But the reason is because Haidas Baldin, when the defendant admits, it's like 100 witnesses. Now, why is that? That's that famous k'seis and Siman Lamed, the famous k'seis that he says that it could be because it's considered a gift. It's different approaches. Is it because of trust, or we trust him more than the witnesses, or is it just because he's consenting and give this gift?
But if
Okay.
the purchaser brings his own witness ahead of time, saying, we see that a lot.
Right. Yeah. Darash Mar Zutra. Mar Zutra taught the Shmei Rav Simi Barashi in the name of Rav Simi Barashi. Hilchasa b'chol hanishmaitza. The halacha in all of these cases is k'tishalach le Rav Abba le Rav Yosef bar Chama, the way Rav Abba sent to Rav Yosef bar Chama. In other words, these, how many was it? 7? These 7 halachas, all of them are get the halacha. Amle Ravina le Ravashi. Ravina says to Ravashi, the Rav Nachman Mai. I have a problem with that because we had one halacha here, number 2, where Rab Abba sent to Rab Yosef bar Chama. He says the halacha is you're allowed to collect from orphans from slaves that they have. In other words, if there was a debt, the creditor can come in and collect from orphans. Usually you can't collect from orphans unless it's property. He says, okay, but slaves are compared to property, you can collect them. And Rav Nachman said that no, slaves are compared to property only for other things, but not when it comes to collections. When it comes to taking oaths and different things, but not when it comes to collection. Now the rule is the halacha is always like Rav Nachman. Now you're telling me the halacha is like Rav Abba. So I have a contradiction here in halacha. What about the Rav Nachman Mai? Amar Lei, so who's saying this? Mar Zutra is responding. He says, no, Amar Lei Ravina the Ravashi. Ravashi is responding, Ein goivin masninan la, v'chein amar Rav Nachman. You have to say, when we said over there that there's a machlaikas between Rav Abba and Rav Nachman, there was no machlaikas. You have to edit that statement and you have to say, not Rav Abba says goivin, and Rav Nachman says ein goivin. Rav Abba said ein goivin. V'chein amar Rav Nachman ein goivin. He's passing them the same. So we edited it, we fixed the problem. They're both saying the same thing. Okay. Gemara says, Vel hilchos lafu kemai. It says, if that's the case, this is how the Gemara's logic is. That, what are you telling me? Everything you told me, well, first it says, it's over here, the way it's starting is, the way it's supposed to start is like this. What are you telling me? There's no chiddush. It says, no, what I'm telling you is a very big chiddush. Then you have to come in and say, well, then who says that that's true? So over here it's saying that, how could you say that? Rav Nachman says the other way. So he says, no, we fixed it up. So he said, okay, you fixed it up. So he says, so now what are you saying? Well, what's the chiddush? You can never win with the Gemara. So so who do you why did you tell me the halacha? Like, who are you coming to exclude? Are you coming to tell me that the halacha is not like Rava? Now, this is taking us back to case number 3, where Rab Abba sent to Rabbi Yosef Bar Chama that the halacha is that a third generation can testify against his cousin from the second generation, which is called a second cousin once removed. We said, that's what Rab Abba said, that he can testify against. Now, Rava came in and said that he can even testify against his great uncle. Okay, which is a third to a first. Now, it's very possible that it doesn't mean that Rab Abba is arguing on Rava. It could be that Rab Abba agrees to Rava that he can testify, a third generation can testify against the first. So why did he say a third generation can't testify against a second generation? Could have said even greater. It's closer, right? It's less, if you have to draw a line, unless you draw a line across. It's because it turns out, because there is a Gemara that says that there is an opinion that says differently, that a second generation is a third to a second is not acceptable. And that was the case. And that's what he was talking about. It doesn't mean that he was excluding the third generation to the first. It could be he agrees with that. So it can't be. Maybe Rava was just adding to what Rab Abba said. Because Rab Abba's case may have a logic also, that they're closer together than the one that's further away. He's higher up, if you draw a line across. Idamar Baravashi, if you want to tell me that the case of Mar Baravashi said that a grandson can testify against the grandfather. It's only a father and son. It says, and we're coming to tell me that Allah is like Rab Abba, that doesn't say like that. Because if that's the case, then less Yelchus Mar Baravashi. We have other Gemaras that say that Allah is not like Mar Baravashi. Even that Gemara itself said. The Gemara said over there, well, less Yelchus Mar Baravashi. So I don't need Mar Zutra to come in and say in the name of Rav Simi Barashi that Allah is like Rav Abba, because your whole point is just to tell me that I don't paskin like Mar Baravashi. All of these 7 cases, the whole chiddush of all of them was just that I don't paskin like Mar Baravashi. So, but I already have another statement that I don't paskin like Mar Baravashi. Ila fukim midishmul v'Rav Sheshes v'Rav Papa. Now we're going back to the case where a blind person can testify what he knew previously before he was blind, either on property or on a garment or even on that. He says, if you're trying to exclude those halachas, we had a kasha on that anyway. We had a meisvei, we had a brisa, we quoted a brisa that says, Zaklal, this is the rule. Anyone that's started with puzzle or ended with puzzle is puzzle. Yeah, there wasn't sight that a witness needs to see it. The Nelam Okay. And then so the Gemara says what it's coming to exclude is what Rabbi Yochanan said. Now Rabbi Yochanan said that we don't trust the father to say that his son is a Bechar against the Chazaka. Comes along Rabbi Abba and says, we do trust the father, because Rabbi Abba paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yochanan paskin like the Rabbanan, that you can trust the father to say that his son is a Bechar. And when we're saying now that the halacha is like Rabbi Abba, so what was our point? Our point is to say that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda against the Rabbanan. Okay, that's one possibility. Another point is, and we askafta the Mar Bar Ravashi, what Yonatan brought up before, that we said over here that Rabbi Abba says that if a person has a document and he says he didn't pay me anything, and the borrower says I paid half, witnesses say that he did pay everything, so we said that he has to take an oath. According to Mar Bar Ravashi, he should not have to take an oath. And now we're saying that we're going to ignore Mar Bar Ravashi, because Mar Bar Ravashi said that since the witnesses showed up, so he's a Meshav Aveda. But we're saying that we're not accepting that opinion, because we're saying that the witnesses only showed up later. And so therefore, he's not considered a Meshav Aveda, and he has to take the oath. So we have two chidushim here. One is that we don't go like Rabbi Yochanan. Another one is that we ignore the question of Mar Bar Ravashi. Okay. Mishnah said, etc. So it said like this. It's when it says chulu over here, you really have to read further in the Mishnah. This is a confusing. If you have in what's going to be in bold, is not relevant. It's only the things that are not in bold. All right. So it says over there is if someone writes whether at the beginning, whether in the middle, or whether at the end, that it's a gift, so then we accept it. So if a person is changing an inheritance from the way it's prescribed, but he says that it's being given as a gift, then that's acceptable. Whether he says the term gift at the beginning, whether he says it in the middle, whether he says it at the end. Hechidami matana betchila, hechidami be'emtza, hechidami b'seif. Going to have the word matana here. It means gift, but also the same Hebrew word, the same letters, same consonants, could be used for the word masna. Now, when you go through the Rashbam, you have to point out masna means to make a condition. And the term that we're doing over here is masna al mashakasa b'Torah. You're making a condition against what the Torah says. The Torah says this, and your masna, you're saying that you want it to do, you're stipulating something against the Torah. So as you read through this, spelled the same way, it's a little bit confusing. But you have to read it and put vowels in. Giving as a gift. Yeah, but we're being very specific here that giving is giving and inheritance is inheritance. Yeah, like Chaylev and Cholam. Yeah. That's right. When there's a few places in when you're learning Kirdea, those halachas of Basra B'Chalav, there's a few places where it's not actually Chalav, it's Chaylev. And those places, it does get a little confusing, but usually you can tell. Okay. We asked the question. Now, remember, we have travelers that come from Eretz Yisrael, and they bring statements in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. One of these travelers is Rav Dimi. Another one is Ravin. Ravin, in general, in Shas, is more accepted than Rav Dimi. Usually, Rav Dimi comes and says things, the Gemara has questions on it, then Ravin comes and resolves all the issues. That's the classic setup, But okay, so Kesser Rav Dimi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Rav Dimi came. He says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. The way it works is like this. It says Tinasin Sada Plainis Leplaini Biyarsha. How do you say in the initially that it's a gift, and even though he said it's an inheritance, but if he used the term gift originally, then it's considered a gift. The fact that he said inheritance later doesn't take away from the fact that it's a gift. Notice the gift is more powerful. Zui matana betchila. That's considered a gift that was mentioned in the beginning. Yarsha v'tinasanlai. He'll inherit and give it to him. Zui matana b'soif. That would be the gift being mentioned at the end. Yarsha v'tinasanlai v'yarsha. He'll inherit it. Give it to him, and he'll inherit it. Zui matana be'emtza. That would be a gift that's mentioned in the center, in the middle. But dafka, here's where it gets complicated. The dafka by the method.
Before you get to the it's already complicated. A gift isn't final till there's a chazaka on it. Because how do you know that? Because someone can retract until it's actually given.
Right.
So
It could be that we're dealing with a document. Let's see the expression. Kasav, he wrote it. It's a document. Yeah. So the dafka, here's where it gets a little bit ambiguous. It says v'dafka ba'adam echad v'sada achas. This is only if we're dealing with one person in one field. Aval ba'adam echad v'shtei sadis, but if we're dealing with two fields with one person, or sada achas v'shnei b'nei adam, or if you're dividing one field between two people, loy, then if you said, like for example, you said, this is a gift for Ruvain, and the other side is an inheritance for Shimon, and the other side is for Shimon as an inheritance. Let's say it like that. That's a little more vague, right? So then Rabbi Yochanan says, then you're going to have to divide that in half. That's going to be a gift for Ruvain, but Shimon is not going to get it because the inheritance doesn't work, because that wasn't exactly what the Torah prescribed. So it's only if it's the same person and you use two terms with him that we're going to look at the part that said gift. But if there's two people there, then we're going to say that when you said inheritance, you're referring to the second person, even if it could be applied to both. But the gift was said at the beginning, right? This is a gift for Ruvain and for Shimon as an inheritance. I would say, as an inheritance was Shimon. Or if I did it the other way.
Yeah.
This inheritance for Ruvain and for Shimon as a gift.
Yeah.
I would say that the gift is only. So Rabbi Yochanan is saying that we're going to divide it in half then. Or the same thing would be if it's two fields in one person. He says, give this field on the north to Ruvain and the one on the south. Or give the one, right, as an inheritance. I would say, the one in the south is an inheritance. Okay.
Yeah, proper noun. Second verse is switched.
Right. Right. Where are we holding? Rabbi Lazar Aimer. Rabbi Lazar says, Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Yochanan can argue. They're teacher-student and teacher-friend, sort of. It's like his chavrusa at one point. Rabbi Lazar Aimer is Rabbi Lazar ben Pedas. Rabbi Lazar from Eretz Yisrael. Afilu adam echad v'shtei sadis. He says, no, that would be the same thing. We combine that statement together. If it's one person in two fields, or sadachas v'shnei b'nei adam. If it's one field and two people, we would say this is given to the part of the field on the half. But I'm sorry, half the field is given to Ruvain and half to Shimon as an inheritance. He said that would all be a gift. But if it's two fields, two different people, then we would actually divide it up and say this field to him as a gift, and this field to him, and this field to him as an inheritance. I would say that the second one is an inheritance. Kiyasa Ravin, when Ravin came, Amar, he said this differently. He said, Tinasin saw the plainness, Laplaini virish plaini saw the plainness. His statement was two people, two fields. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Kana. Rabbi Yochanan says that he acquires it. It's a gift. Two people, two fields. Even Rabbi Lazar didn't say this. And then Rabbi Lazar says he doesn't acquire it. So Amalei Abaya l'Ravin. Abaya says to Ravin, he says, Anchas lan chada v'askafta lan chada. You've straightened out one thing, but you've made a problem with something else. If Rabbi Elazar says before that you acquire it, that's because it was one field and two people. But over here, it's two fields and two people. But over here, I'm sorry, there it was one person in two fields, but here it's two people in two fields. But Ella, the Rabbi Yochanan Kasha, but according to Rabbi Yochanan, the two statements of Rabbi Yochanan, the one that you brought and the one that Rabbi Dimi brought, it's exactly the opposite. Here he says, Rabbi Yochanan says, you acquire it even if it's two fields. And Rabbi Yochanan says, no, two fields you don't acquire. So Ravin responds, yeah, there's me and there's Rav Dimi. We have different teachings in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, which somehow that's acceptable answer. And yeah, we have different opinions what Rabbi Yochanan said. Rish Lakish says, like Kanach Yaimer, Pliny Upliny Yershu Sada Pliny Uplinus, Shenasatana Matana V'Yershim. Rish Lakish says, what's this page over here? Really, you don't acquire unless you say, you have to say Yerusha at the beginning, Yerusha at the end, and Matana in the middle. If you're dealing with two people. In other words, the matana in the middle, because it's could go to beginning, could go to the end, depends on where you put the comma. So it says we're going to do it on both. That's the way you would do it. The Gemara now says, "Beplukta." This statement that we made is actually a machlekes. In other words, Rav Dimi's version and Ravin's version is actually a machlekes in Bavel itself. Both of those were statements coming from Eretz Yisrael. Rav Dimi is coming from Eretz Yisrael, from Rabbi Yochanan. Ravin is coming from Rabbi Yochanan, right? They have two versions of Rabbi Yochanan. The Gemara says that this is a machlekes in Bavel. Amar Rav Hamnuna. Rav Hamnuna's statement is similar to Rav Dimi. He says, exactly the way Rav Dimi quoted Rabbi Yochanan, that it's only with one person in one field. But once you get more complicated, then we say that we divide it up, and the inheritance goes to one, and which means it's not valid, and the gift goes to the other, and it's not gonna work perfectly. Rav Nachman says it like Ravin brought it, that says no, we're gonna put the gift on both of them. Even if it's one person, two fields, or or if it's two fields and one person. I'm sorry, one field and two people, or two fields and one person, that's going to be acceptable. But if it's two fields and two people, no, that was the way Ravin brought it. Rav Sheshes Amar, even if it's two people, two fields, and as long as you mentioned anywhere in that sentence gift, then the gift will go to both. Okay, let's leave it over here. We're up to Amar Rav Sheshes, 3 lines from the bottom.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. Good Shabbos. Good Chodesh.
Chodesh Daf, that's right. Sorry. Yeah. No, it's not because of the doubt.